Week 12, Exposition. But first, some context.
This project seeks to investigate potential futures spinning out of Rainer Banham's The Architecture of the Well-Tempered Environment and A Home is Not a House, in an imaginative and speculative manner. By pushing many of his ideas to their at least semi-logical conclusions, we can learn about the respective shortcomings and advantages of such approaches. Specifically, the project is latched on to the structure versus power dichotomy of environmental control methods presented to us initially in chapters 12 and 13 of The Well-Tempered Environment. Initially, I used these two modalities to present extremist trajectories of ideology. If one path were followed uncompromisingly, what would the result look like some 2 centuries down the road? The scenes scrolling by depict the first foray into establishing an atmosphere responding to each approach individually. But for the accompanying narratives which flesh out the world-building exercise, you'll have to watch my video from week 5. Both in this and its final stage, the project does not seek to depict dystopias, nor utopias, nor even e-utopias. Rather, these contexts exist simply as provocations in a singular imagined timeline from which we can hopefully spark thought, reflection, and speculation. Some critical events are assumed to have transpired in these futures, such as climatic collapse and political extremism, which allows for more relevant speculation on potential technological developments or cultural shifts. Seeking to bring both paths together instead of eliminate one, the following phase of the project brings in critical social and technological issues Banham writes about in A Home is Not a House. The redefinition of common practices of dwelling, lifestyle, and the domestic that arise from the idea of a non-existent or non-enclosed house are of particular interest. Pursuing this radical sense of freedom further, what kind of society would arise? What would the consequences be for those who are inevitably unable to participate?
Part 2. Setting the Scene.
The current phase of the project engages with Banham and Delagray's prototypical bubble. It situates them in a barren, post-climatic collapse landscape. Now known as ionic conditioning units, these massive conglomerations of mechanical systems create a tempered bubble of controlled atmosphere which allows for terrestrial habitation in the area below them. Juxtaposed with these power-centric structures are completely passive and largely subterranean bunkers, structures from a bygone era before humans had achieved nuclear fusion and eliminated energy scarcity. Although in this new age all resource scarcity is largely a thing of the past, socioeconomic class divisions are still extremely pronounced. Those with capital carrying over from prior investments are able to ride out that wealth, living idyllic lives in the lush growth replanted underneath each ionic conditioning unit. Those that are less fortunate must dwell in passive bunkers outside of the temporary atmosphere and labor to keep their spot. The project illustrates itself from the perspective of a former resident of one of those bunkers, now working as a maintenance operator on one of the ionic conditioning units. She sits atop one of these structures and reflects if her labor is worthwhile or justified. Is the security but banality of life in a bunker that much worse than the idyllic life in the Eden below her, which is constantly at risk of collapse?
Part 3. Our story begins.
That sure was a close call. Thank God I can finally breathe. The transformer core almost overheated. I can't believe 3 of the 9 brushing spindles got fried at once. Fucking ridiculous. I should report whoever was on shift yesterday. I guess I just have to change the filters on the expired particle intakes and then I should be able to take a break for a bit. Maybe I'll get to see the sunset. Finally I get to sit. I guess the job is worth it for the view. Sometimes this godforsaken place is kind of beautiful. I wonder what the rest of the maintenance corps is thinking right now. After ICU-36C failed last week, into such a typical issue, I've got to wonder, was it really an accident? Or did the attendant let the machine fail on purpose? It's no wonder my family chose to stay in Bunker 4. They could have come with me here. It's not much better, but at least I get to breathe fresh air. But they were probably right. There's no point in trying to move up. When you don't have much, perhaps it's best to hold on to what you do have rather than gamble it on a fleeting dream. I should be sad that so many people died. But really, I'm not sure I care that much. I feel more pain for the plants. Look at them, down there. Not a care in the world. It's like those old paintings I saw of women orgies. This is what we call society? I can't tell if I'm jealous or not. I could just stop doing my job anytime. I'd go down too, but at least I'd get all of them back. Then again, this is the only way to make our ancestral home habitable again. Maybe at some point, sometime, we will all live here together again.